All right, guys. So now we have questions. It's your turn. Enough of us talking.
Okay. I think it's on. Yeah. I had a question about a point I saw, Melissa, on your slides. It talked about being careful with employer programs designed to encourage employees to lose weight that can potentially even increase the stigma and make matters worse. I just wanted to hear about that, and if there's any kind of best practices that you know of for companies that want to do this to maybe avoid that problem.
we actually have a couple scenarios that we do after the questions that will touch on that, because it's a fine line that you walk between being motivational and being basically discriminating. So we'll talk about a couple of them in the scenario.
Yeah.
My husband is having, he's got big genes.
Okay.
And some research on his family, and from the 14 and 1500s, they were described as big, stocky people. And he feels, he feels that, if he starts reporting when he exercises, and which we do try to exercise a lot, that will be used against him for insurance reasons. And so I just want to kind of bring that to the table too, because I do feel that many people will not participate in those programs because notes are being taken and maybe used against them.
There are actually, and we didn't talk about this in there, but there are actually, I have found this from getting patients into the surgical program, that there are a lot of employers that have shopped around for their Anthem policies, Humana policies, and they've chosen to exclude the bariatric coverage from their policies. So that's absolutely horrible for those patients who, like Melissa said, and I always start my surgical seminars by telling people, I know you didn't just wake up and say, I'm going to go get surgery to lose weight today. You have probably spent years, if not your entire life, working out, eating right, taking medicine, doing everything else that everybody says. You need to do that Atkins diet. You need to do the cantaloupe diet or whatever weird diets are out there. The lemon water, I don't know what they are. They've done all of it. They would stand on their head for 4 days straight if it was guaranteed to lose weight. So that's what's horrible for those patients, that they can't afford the cash price for the surgery and their employer has actually chosen to exclude that coverage for them. Yes. You have to press your microphone on your table.
Big husbands, but my husband my husband was big and had the bariatric surgery and lost a lot of weight, and he just kind of struts around like he has all this confidence and all, he's just so totally different, but he's not different. But why would something like that be so noticeable? I mean, because you're the same on the inside. And that's another thing, that after his surgery, the doctor said, he went through the surgery well, now, he's going to start losing weight. And I said, well, that wasn't the problem. I said, I think the problem is his emotional eating. That's not going to go away. Mm-hmm. So, that's two questions. You have the emotional eating, and then why all of a sudden is your confidence changed when you're the same person?
Well, I think just because it does have such a big impact on self-esteem. I mean, it's interesting. It's a good thing that his confidence did get better. It's interesting because in a lot of patients that I work with, when they do lose weight after having surgery, they still feel like that same person they were, and they are the same person, but they have trouble identifying with a thinner body. So oftentimes it can take time for your mind to catch up with all the changes happening, especially if you've struggled with weight your whole life and that's all you know. And so I often hear that more actually. So I find that's positive in his case, that he does feel good and he's probably able to do things he hasn't been able to do in a long time. He's more active and he has energy, he's sleeping better, all those benefits that come with weight loss. You know, he's still the same person, but it does have a huge impact on self-esteem. It affects your mood, like I mentioned earlier, just all those limitations that come with obesity. So,
And I was just going to say something to, you're right. There's still the emotional eating component to it. We don't do brain surgery. We do stomach surgery. So brain doesn't change. We can't rewire. But for our surgical program, we do monthly support groups with these patients where the dietitians and the therapists will lead a lot of those. Because it's not only hard on the patients, it's hard on the significant others too. Because you're right, he starts strutting his stuff around. There's a lot of broken marriages afterward. There's all kinds of stuff. And they also do get lifetime follow-ups with the dietitians and the therapist after the surgery as well, because it's a hard thing to teach a patient that the surgery is a tool. It doesn't, you don't wake up a Victoria's Secret model. There's, much to their dismay, but there is a lot of the behavioral modifications, the food modifications. It's a lot to take on after surgery. So we do support them with the dietitians and the therapist every step of the way, because there's a lot of stages you go through with it. Yep. And there's still the body dysmorphia. There's still, I see myself being 400 pounds, and all of a sudden you start getting all this attention from the opposite sex and all this stuff, and it's like, man. So eventually you start to realize, well, I'm not 400 pounds anymore, and that's where those broken marriages come in and all of that as well.
Okay, sorry. I was just going to say to Sandra, I think sometimes too, if you've not been overweight, you don't understand, like someone who is overweight, and I'm glad you all talked about it. It's not like they just woke up one day and was like, oh, I'm going to start overeating. Every time someone who's overweight and is trying to lose weight slides or binges or does something like that, or doesn't eat a salad, there's a little bit of component of beating themselves up. And so when you can go through a day and you're not beating yourself up, of course he feels better, because a lot of that, even if you take away public opinion, which is often negative, he probably was beating himself up internally on a regular basis. And when you start feeling good, like you got through the day and you did eat a lot of protein and you made good choices, he feels good about himself that he made those choices. So sometimes I don't even know if it's as much a physical as an emotional. And it's also another thing you pointed out that I thought was good is when you say, I think someone who's never struggled with weight loss, if I say, while I'm eating my Girl Scout cookies, I need to lose 15 pounds. Someone who's never really struggled is looking at you going, well, then put the cookie down. Right. And someone who does understand that struggle is like, no, this cookie is very near and dear to me right now. And it's life-saving in some weird way. So it's just trying to understand the differences that people bring into, I think Kim had mentioned, our personal biases.
Right. Yeah. I know my mom is overweight, and she will say, I've been in this position for a year, and I had never worked with bariatric patients before this. And my mom has always said to me, you don't know, you don't understand, because you've never struggled a day in your life with your weight. And this is where the emotional part as well as the willpower can come in, because I've seen her struggle, but it's motivated me that I don't want to do that, because I have a sweet tooth like no other. I can skip all kinds of meals, but if somebody wants to give me some ice cream, chocolate cake, whatever, I'm gonna scarf it down. And there is that, oh, why did I do that, after you do it? And that's where the bulimia comes in, and all of that. It's a huge emotional factor, and that's where she can work with these guys, because it's a lot to it. It's not just fixed with surgery. It's a lot up here too.
Yeah, I think so. What are some of the emotional tools that you do, if you're able to go over maybe 3 of them quickly for us, just,
Sure. No, good question.
Who maybe are
Uh,
getting some success or
yeah.
are, having some roadblocks?
The main thing that I recommend with the patients I see is just it's helpful. They may not really realize that they're like emotional eaters. So it's important to identify any kind of patterns they have. And one way to do that is to keep track of what you eat, but also to take notice of when you do have a tendency to overeat, recognize patterns. Is it like the same time of day every day? Am I having a hard time at night? Is that when I feel like really vulnerable? So just that awareness is really important in keep note of that and learning how to recognize the difference between true physical hunger and head hunger. And one way to do that is to practice eating mindfully. And that's something, has anybody heard of that term, mindful eating? Yeah, I see a few. It's basically just eating in the present. So you're paying attention, you're enjoying your food, you want to savor what you're eating, but you're slowing it down, you're putting your fork down between bites, and you're recognizing, okay, am I getting to the point where I feel good, I feel satisfied? Yeah, maybe I can eat a little bit more, but I don't need to. You don't want to eat to the point beyond fullness. So mindful eating, awareness, self-talk is a big one. We sabotage ourselves all the time. That black or white thinking, oh, well, I've already had an Oreo, might as well eat the whole sleeve or whatever it is. So I've ruined it for the day. So just that black or white thinking, I've already failed. So Girl Scout cookies, yes. Guilty myself. So I had a chord with some people there. So it's very important just to take notice of your thinking patterns too, and just pay attention to that and to not be so black or white. I mean, it takes time, it takes practice, but it's just really awareness. It's paying attention to what you tell yourself and holding yourself accountable to, and not, not having this expectation that I have to be perfect, because nobody is. Obviously, you're going to make mistakes. And, I tell people all the time, that's how you learn,
When the negative self-talk does come into play, what do you recommend to your patients? Like what are some of the
tools?
positive, healthy self-talk?
Yeah, well, like I said, it takes time. Oftentimes we have this internal tape, and it can come from just maybe comments from other family or people we've heard growing up making negative comments. And so we replay that. Or if it comes just from us, our own perfectionistic standards. So I think it's important. The first step is just being aware of it when you're doing it, but also using like self-affirmations. And I know some people might find that a little bit hokey, but it can be really important to just write down some things and tell yourself, even if you don't believe it. I always tell people, fake it till you make it, because that's a whole idea behind like cognitive behavioral changes, is tell yourself that, I'm doing this to be healthy, today's going to be a good day. Or if you make a mistake, okay, I ate that Oreo cookie, but I can, get back on track. It's going to be okay. I'm not a failure. So you can see how it takes practice to change that internal thinking, because we're hardwired, so it takes time to reprogram that computer. But it's just practice, affirmations, holding yourself accountable, recognizing it. So there's no easy fixes, it's just time.
I think that another good thing that we teach our patients. I know you have a question. I know. Melissa keeps talking, it reminds me of something. I think another good thing that we teach our patients is, because again, there's that big emotional part to it, is find, and I know we just did a support group on this a couple months ago, find something else to either self-soothe, cozy blanket, bubble bath, candles that smell good. Reward yourself with something other than food, because how many times do we say, like, I'm gonna go to the gym and then I'm gonna go and get me some Panera after it, because that's healthy. I think it's healthy. It's all my food groups, so yeah, it's pretty healthy. Don't reward yourself with Panera. Reward yourself with, I'm gonna go to the gym, and I did awesome this month. I lost 15 pounds this month. I'm going to go buy that shirt I've been wanting to get, that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be a spending money, you know, go walk in the park with your kids, go take your dog for a run, something like that that relaxes you. And it's still kind of rewarding to do that at the end of the day. Besides, I had a hard day, I deserve this pint of ice cream. We probably think that a lot. Massage. Yes, that's a good one too. Yes. So that's something else we kind of teach them to somewhat start to rewire the brain of how, you know, when we were kids, we probably got in trouble for not finishing our plate. So that's kind of what we think now. I can't leave that little morsel on the plate. There are starving kids in Somalia. Yeah, like I gotta do it. My mom is saying it in my head. We don't have to do that anymore. The portion sizes are so much bigger now than when we were kids. And that's what we talked about. So, you know, it's ship your food off to the starving kids in Somalia if it makes you feel better, but don't do that to yourself. So that's something else we teach them is you know, rewarding with something different. I'm going to go to you because I know you've been.
This is what goes back to what Sam said. I've been here. And well,
Awesome. Yes. Yes.
The new person is unfair.
Yep.
And I think it's just, I don't know that I'll ever see it.
Mhm.
And I don't know the way to see it. I actually went back to my doctor earlier this year and he sat me down and said, okay, where are we? And how much more do you pay? I'm going to lose. Now I know, I need to benefit the family. You know, and I have it, but this is what I waited to go to school, and blah, blah, blah. It's like a long time since you've been in school.
Yes.
You're a lot, you know, you're older and more mature, and things aren't going to go back the way they were.
Right, right.
And, but I still not see really the change. So it's just a hard time. Face the easy way out. Like that's so
Yes, I hate that.
I do too. I hate hearing that. Yeah.
It's a terrible thing to say because it's not, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
the recovery of it and then,
Surgery.
and you're right, yeah, changing your brain after you can't even physically fit as much food into your stomach as what you used to. So that's a hard thing to adjust to. I personally think it'd be a lot easier to go to a gym and work out and eat carrots all day long than to have surgery. So it's definitely not the easy way out by any means. There's a lot of recovery to it.
One thing I noticed is that there's far fewer men in the room than women, so I had a question related to that. I mean, do you see differences in the way that obesity in men is perceived as opposed to women, in the tools that men can use, in the ways that men maybe beat themselves up, or, you know, really anything gender specific to the issue that you see?
It's because all the women have big husbands at home. I'm kidding. I had to use that comment again. I'm going to tell everyone at the office that comment. Yeah, we actually, Kim had asked us about that when you guys started filing in, and I said, honestly, this is normal. For our seminars, the patients interested in surgery in the medical program, it is normal to see women, and it is a whole slew of reasons. It's society perceives an overweight or obese woman much differently than a man. And then this is probably not the most professional example, being recorded, right? But the dad bod is in now, so it's like you would never hear a mom bod being in. You know, it's not attractive for a woman based on society. It's not attractive for a woman to have a couple extra pounds around the belly, which is exactly where women carry theirs, is the belly, the hips, and men are usually upper body kind of thing, or you know, a beer belly type thing. And so it's just perceived a lot differently. You know, overweight actors, they're not missing out on jobs. You know, Jim Belushi was hilarious, and Chris Farley, and, you know, they had plenty of jobs, and they weren't sex symbols and all that, so nobody cared. But, you know, Melissa McCarthy, she got hate for being overweight. So it's really deep rooted, and it's going to take a long time to undo it, but I guarantee that's why we see more women than men.
And maybe this was fascinating. I didn't notice this as starkly in Patty. There were more women, and it was not the team.
About 4 to 1.
Yeah. So first of all, kudos to the men in the room.
Yes.
may be more difficult to walk in and earn and have insurance. And what does that say, right? We can't have an insurance. And what does that say about our culture here that some are more comfortable to walk and learn about a topic like this? And granted, it's a little different of a topic, right? But maybe that says something about, the topic and comfort levels to come in and spend your lunchtime. So again, it goes to the end. And, I encourage you to share positive experience with others. But that was immediate that I was watching. I said to them, "What's with this?"
Yeah. Yeah.
I learned something.
We weren't surprised by it.
Yes, sir.
This is just a follow-up question, I think, the first question I have. Because I think the tension is if we, as a society, say obesity is not good because it's not healthy and it has all these side effects and such, and yet at the same time we don't want to cause people who are obese to feel out of place, feel unaccepted, feel unwanted, and be discriminated against. How do you deal with that sort of tension? And I think one of you all said, well, it's a delicate line. But I mean, at one time, I think there is a tension there because when you're trying to encourage people to live healthier lives, at the very same time, you're implicitly sort of saying to the other people that are obese, well, there's something wrong with you. And so what we're trying to do is fight this battle of not making those people feel bad, but yet bring them along, hopefully, to where they change their lifestyle to where they're not suffering the consequences of that condition.
Well, we can go ahead and do the scenarios to kind of talk about that because I think that is a big topic of where is that line and how do we not cross it and that kind of thing. And then we can always go back to taking some questions.